down. I'm taking classes in school to get my degree in ministerial leadership. So one of the classes, the guy was talking about when he just had note cards, he would write down just thoughts would come. So I started doing that. Well, in my mind, I started hearing things like, we've all heard this one, like a good neighbor, or we've heard nationwide is on your side, or are you in good hands, and nowadays aren't going to be stuck in your head. But these slogans, these concepts were designed to create or evoke an emotion in you, or start you to have confidence. Do I really have the right insurance? Do I really have the right, protection that I need for my family? So that was kind of the premise of how I got this idea. And the message, if you like titles, is going to be, are you in good hands? And so I'm thinking about this, and how can you relate, to people? But then I remember when my boys were younger, especially one of them, he had this fascination with jumping on his dad. I could walk into a room, and they'd be playing, and he would be on the bed, and he would jump. I might not even have seen him, but the movement out of the corner of my eye, would cause me to turn and catch him. Now, he just trusted that his dad was going to catch him. He had that faith, or that, Daddy's going to catch me. Daddy's here, I'm in the air, he's going to catch me. I have never dropped them. I wanted to, but I have never dropped them. But it was that kind of just a blind faith. But it's not, it's not that he needed it just to jump to his dad. We need it too as believers and as Christians. That, we have to be on that receiving end of faith. And when I was looking up the word faith, and it doesn't mean believe. It does, but it doesn't. When the Hebrews and Jews and the early Christians would have heard that word, they wouldn't have took it as, believe. They believed in God. Their fault has always been they failed to trust God. So when you start putting how they would interpret that word, now it makes a little bit more sense when you see Jesus rebuking his disciples going, you have little faith, you have little trust. Why aren't you trusting me? And I've said this before, but for every Jewish child, even to this day, the first 5 books of the Bible, they all have to know that, almost memorizing it. So they've heard the stories. And you imagine the apostles and the disciples and stuff, they walked by Jordan. So they saw the rocks. And why did they put the rocks there? They said, put these 12 stones here, so every time you go by, it's a reminder. So your grandparent, your granddaddy, and your daddy and them can tell you what I did. So they've heard the stories. But yet he always constantly reminds them, why don't you trust me? The Ark of the Covenant had a budding branch in it. It had, the stone tablets that Moses was given. It was, there was manna in there. These were things they were tangible things that they had that every Jewish child knew about. But yet he constantly reminds them, why do you not trust me? I've given you all these signs. I've given you all these things. And I was thinking about that in my own life, where sometimes I fail. Yes, I believe there's a God, but sometimes I fail to trust him. I can trust him if I got cancer. The Lord's going to heal me. Whether it's this side or that side, he's going to heal me. But can I trust him to find my car keys when I misplaced them? In Hebrews chapter 11, verse 1, and I'm using the Christian Standard Bible, just because when I compare them, this probably broke it down in a much simpler way. It says, now faith is the reality of what is hoped for and the proof of what is not seen. And again, I told you that word, the Jewish would have heard it as trust. Now trust is the reality of what is hoped for. See, when I pray for somebody that is sick, I'm asking God to do what He's already done in heaven. He's already paid the cost, the penalty for my healing. So I'm asking Him to show that. I'm trusting that He's going to do it. I heard Pastor last week mention, we're not in the business of protecting God's reputation. If I pray for somebody, it is not my reputation on the line. It is God's. What God asks me is, pray. Will you put yourself out there to pray for somebody? I've heard that before at a revival in Alabama. And a guy who operates in healing crusades, goes all over the world, has documented proof of people who've been paralyzed for 23 years getting up out of the wheelchair. And he would always call ministers up on stage. Now, I hated it because no matter what time me and Wani decided we're going to go up there, we ended up smack dab in the middle of the stage. And I'm just like, Lord, I just want to be on the side. But that's one thing he said. He said, guys, you're not responsible for the results. You're responsible to do what God's asked you to do. And that's the faith that we need. Again, I told you the Jewish children, they knew the story of the Exodus. They knew the story of the parting of the Red Sea. They knew the fall of Jericho. They knew David, slaying Goliath. They remembered the stories of the Babylonian exile and coming back and all the stuff that God has done. But yet God always had to remind them, you don't trust me. You don't trust me. And too many times we're guilty of that as believers ourselves. When we're out there looking for a job, and I know we have to have money, but we look at our security in our job. What happens if they close the plant that you're working at? We go in a panic mode. We stress. We put our faith in our 401ks. We put it in our spouses, our family. We put it in a pastor. That's why you see many churches when a pastor retires or has a moral failure or whatever, you see them go into utter chaos because why? It was built on his personality. It wasn't built on trusting God. Or we build it as ministers, we're really bad for putting our trust in doing the work of the ministry. God doesn't want that. God has never wanted us to trust in that. He always wanted us to trust in Him, in His power, His authority over our lives. And trust and faith is a very important part of us. Because in verse 6 of chapter 11, it says, now without faith it is impossible to please God. Since the one who draws near to Him must believe that He exists and that He rewards those who seek Him. Without faith, without trust, without that, I can't even be drawn close to God. I can't be saved. I can't just say, you know what? I don't want to be saved. It doesn't work like that. God His Holy Spirit has to draw us in. So when we're ministering to our co-workers and our family and our friends, our sphere of influence, the people that we come in contact with, we have to have that Holy Spirit in us that just draws like a moth to a flame. You turn on a light. Even now, I was coming home because I work second shifts. So when I come home, one will have a motion light on. And I'll come out and I'll be out looking in the yard, checking the yard out, and I'll look up and as cold as it's been, I still see bugs and stuff hitting them legs. Would you just die already? I want the cold, harsh winter. I'm from northeast Ohio, so I like it, but I need the bugs to go away. I can't stand being out in my yard and you can't walk because the fire ants are killing you. They got to go. But that faith and that trust in God, who He is. That's our hope. That's our hope. When Jesus rose from the dead, why did He rise from the dead? Because He wanted to give us that hope, that trust, that faith. That I even conquer death. I can take you to heaven. I have that authority within me. So everything revolves around trust, faith in God. And that's where mankind fell. Let's go, in Genesis. What did Satan do? Satan caused them to have a lack of trust in what God said. Now, Adam and Eve had everything they ever wanted. They didn't even have to have clothes, and they weren't getting suntanned and sunburned. I go outside for a minute in the summertime, without some sunscreen or something on, I'm coming back red as a lobster. I'm getting burnt. For the longest time, I never went to the beach because the first time I went to the beach here in North Carolina, I got sun poisoning. I said, that's the devil's work. But that was, but what did he do? He said, hey, what can't you do? You can't eat from that tree? No, we'll die. Are you sure? Now, God has given them everything that they ever wanted. They wanted for nothing. And what did he do? The lack of trust in what God said. Lack of faith in what God said. Are you sure that's what he said? And we get to that point where when you get that report from the doctor that says, you got stage 4 cancer, and we're only giving you months, weeks, days, hours to live. Don't we do that? Don't our hearts sink? And we forget that God says, by my stripes you are healed. When he got on the cross and he said it is finished, what was finished? His life? Or was it the payment for sin? Or was it your sickness? Was it the disease? Was it the hurt? Was it the bondage? What was finished? That's where we put our faith and our trust in. I've been through many jobs where I was a company boy, and it get the time of being laid off, and I was just a number to them. It didn't matter how much I sacrificed time with my family, events that my kids were doing, I was going to be a good company man. And I was just a number. See, my trust was in them. I wanted to take care, and I needed to take care of my family. But I put all my trust that they were going to take care of me. When I should have put my trust in God. Matthew, we read in chapter 8, we read the story because it's not just an Old Testament thing. This is a New Testament problem. Because we read here in verse 23 through 27, Jesus tells his disciples, hey, let's get in a boat, let's go to the other side. They get in a boat. Now remember, 4 of these men were, they could have been, deadliest catch fishermen. Okay, they could have been on the Bering Sea, or I've been watching this thing, Shark Wranglers, where these guys go out and capture, sharks and, great whites and stuff to tag them to research. These are the kind of men. Okay, the sea's getting rough, don't scare them. This is their life. But yet they get out there. Jesus is in there. Jesus is like, I've just been preaching. I just did my crusade. I got to get some sleep, guys. He gets in there and he goes to sleep. What happens? Storm comes up, and it's getting a little bit rough. Things are getting, water's coming over the side. Now remember, again, for these guys, this is their livelihood. It's not like they've never been on a rough sea before. Yet they get scared, and then they get mad at Jesus because he's sleeping. Hey, aren't you going to save us? We're going to die here, and you're sleeping. Now, I would put myself in that situation. Yeah, I would be probably saying the same thing, and I might even add some colorful adjectives in there when I'm doing it. But Jesus looks at him and says, "Why are you afraid? Do a little faith. Do a little trust." They're in the boat with him. And he wasn't scared. He was in the boat with them. He said, "Why? Why are you afraid? I'm here with you. Nothing's going to happen to you that I don't allow. Or my Father wasn't allow." And I wanted to bring that example out because, they had Jesus standing right there beside him. Now we always say, well, if Jesus is right there, I would do such and such. And I'm of the mindset is, I would probably do what they did. And like I said, I would probably add colorful adjectives into my language when I am frustrated or scared or whatever. My filters tend to slip my mind at that moment. And I can imagine. You see, that's what I said. When you start putting trust in how they would have understood faith, now it starts making a little bit more sense. Oh, they said, why? You guys, why don't you trust me? I'm here with you. And he rebukes the wind, and he stops. And of course, they're, that just stuns them. But now with this story of the centurion makes more sense to me. Because he talks about how much faith the centurion had. The centurion didn't even need Jesus to go to his house. I mean, we all want the pastor to come to the house and pray for us when we're sick, or come meet us in a hospital, whatever, And he just said, no, I don't need you at the house. I understand authority. And because you have authority, you can say this and that, and things will happen. I tell a soldier, hey, you need to go do this, you need to go do that, and they do it. You need to come here, and they do it, because of my authority. And Jesus is like, I haven't seen anywhere in Israel. And I know we focus that he was here to redeem the whole world, but at this time when Jesus was walking, his main focus was on the nation of Israel. So when he talks about, I haven't seen any faith like that. Guys, I've given you all the signs. I've been in the boat with you. I've delivered you from this and that. And this guy who's a Gentile, who's who's an occupier, understands my authority and has more trust in me than the people I've shown things to. All he heard was stories, secondhand accounts. These kids were taught. They went to the festivals, the feasts. They were reminded constantly of what God and Jesus has done. Yet this man hears a secondhand story. Hey man, you go to that church over there, there's healing. But the people inside that church is going, I don't know about all that now. That's kind of weird. But he just says, you know what? Oh, that's the pastor of that church? Hey, can you pray for my sick mother-in-law who's got cancer? No, you don't have to come see her. Just if you pray, I know she'll get better. And that's what the centurion was doing. That's what this commander was doing, saying, all you got to do is speak it. I trust you in your authority enough to speak it into existence. And Jesus, marvels at this. Well, I've given these guys, this nation, all these examples, but yet they won't trust in me. This guy hears secondhand stories, and he trusts in me, in my authority. What's wrong? What's wrong? I never wanted my child when he decided he was going to jump to be in that place where he was scared that I was going to drop him or that I was going to not catch him. I don't want him to say, what's wrong with that? If he didn't love me? Now again, because they're little, so they don't think that you didn't see them, that you were preoccupied with something else. All they knew is, I jumped and you didn't catch me. You must not love me. It breaks that trust, that faith that they have in me. I never wanted my children. So I can understand where Jesus is going. It breaks my heart that I've never dropped my child, but they don't trust that they can jump. Why? This child over here who's never jumped, he has more faith that I'll catch him than the child that I've always caught. Yeah. Why? Why is that? And that breaks his heart. That's why now that I said, now that doing more research and stuff, and the more I'm learning in school-wise, the deeper I can go and deeper I can understand, it starts changing perspectives on how I view the scriptures. You know, I would encourage anybody, you know, even if you don't go to get a degree, just to go and take online classes, or you know, to learn a little bit more, because it changes. You know, that's one reason we say it's a living Bible, because the more you know, the different it gets. It's deeper and deeper levels, and you're like, okay, I've been totally messed up on this. Not that what we do, sometimes keeping it simple. I use the KISS principle a lot. For those who don't know, it's keep it simple, stupid. That's a principle they teach us in the Army. You know, it's keep it simple. Sometimes we complicate stuff, but you know, and this, it gives you a different meaning, a different feel to why he hurts like he does. And the stories we read in the Bible, they're not fairy tales. They're not some, you know, Harry Potter movie, or you know, or a Disney, you know, Disney classic, or they're real. And it's not just history. It's not something that happened back in the day. The Bible says that God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. God's still in the business of touching people's lives. People out there are hopeless. They're dying. Why do people drink? Why do people smoke? Why do people do drugs? You know, chase after porn. They're trying to fill up some kind of void, some kind of hopelessness. And I've shared with other ministers before, you know, when I was in the world, you know, when I go out on Friday and Saturday, I mean, and it was more when I was in Korea, but when I would go out, I mean, we started at 7 o'clock before we even left to go to the clubs, you know, but it was for that moment in time, for however long we were out, I didn't have a care in the world. I didn't worry about work the next day. I didn't worry about any problems I had, you know. But yet we get into church, we get saved, we get dignified, and we stress about everything. I always ask the ministers, what did you give them? And I hold myself in that same group. What did you give them? You told them for a moment in time, you need to give that up, where you're carefree, you're relaxing, to come and sit for a bunch of rules, and that's what most people believe. We have a bunch of rules of don't do this, don't do that, don't, you know, but we don't give them any joy. We don't give them any freedom. Life is meant to be lived. I just had a conversation with a coworker about that. We were talking about work, and we've had some serious changes going on at work, and they haven't been for the better, and stuff. And now the market's getting tighter, so they've laid off the temporaries, and, you know, so everybody's just in that, kind of getting in that stress mode. Here's the holidays, now I'm telling you, you got no overtime. Before, when you didn't want overtime, I mean, you were pretty much eating, sleeping, and working. You know, sometimes you didn't even, you know, eat. You just slept and worked. But, you know, so everybody's doing that. But we were talking about that, and I said, I never want to be where my job is my life. I said, life is meant to be lived, to be enjoyed. I'm here for X amount of years. I don't want to be miserable that time. And I don't want to make other people miserable with me. Now, my wife will say that I do, that I like to make her and the kids' life miserable. But, you know, that's just love. That's what I do, you know. But it's you know, I want to be a person that goes in and changes the atmosphere. That changes the environment that I'm in. That people are, again, drawn. I want to have such a faith and a trust in God that, you know, when I come to Him, and that's why I say, come to me boldly. You know, just as my child would jump when I walked in the room and he was on the bed, you know, he boldly just jumped. God wants us to come boldly and say, hey, you know, Lord, there's this need, and I'm praying for it. Your will is that, you know, that we be whole. Your will is, that we would be, saved. That we be free from bondages. When Jesus recites Isaiah, I'm here to set the captives free, give sight to the blind, to break bondages, that's the will. That's been the will for us right there. It's to go out and change our environment, change our sphere of influence, the people that we come in contact with, the kids that you're raising, the friends that they bring over to your house. It's our responsibility to create that. But we have to have that faith. We have to have that trust. And he talks about just the mustard seed of faith. And if you ever seen the mustard seed, and I have one in one of my thousands of Bibles somebody brought, it's like this. But a mustard seed plant, it's huge. And God said, if you just have enough trust to believe that I'm going to do what I say I'm going to do, or believe in who I am and the things that I'm capable of doing, you can tell a mountain to move. Mm-hmm. There's nothing that's impossible for you. We all have some kind of mountain in our life. Now, other people may look at it and say, that mountain's a molehill. You know that, right? But to you, that is the biggest thing in the world. I remember when I was little, I had an uncle that I'm actually taller than now. But when I was little, everybody was scared of this uncle. He was a biker, long hair, just he was rough, and we're all scared of this bike, of this uncle. Why? Because to us he was just this big, bad, tough guy. Now as we're older, he's not quite like that. Now you're like, that's what I was worried of. Okay, but that's sometimes when we look back at our problem, we're like, that's what I've been afraid of? That's what's been causing me to stumble? But when we're looking at it, it's overwhelming. But God wants us to have that kind of faith-moving mountain. Faith. Not for just our lives, but again, I really do think that it's for believers, we've got to be outwardly focused. Not just I want my kids to have a good life, but I want my coworkers to have a good life. Even though my job stresses me a lot, I told them when I started there I had a big old afro. Now you see what I got left, and even though it stresses me, I still pray for it. I still want them to be successful, So my faith and my trust in God, I want to come in there and be a positive influence. And I have people that come up, people that, will tell you they're atheist or agnostic or whatever. They'll come up and, they'll say, Jerry, will you pray for me? Because you don't stress like everybody else does. Why? Why is that? I just know that God's going to watch over me. I'm not as strong as Juan is. I think this week even, she misplaced the keys for something, and she'll pray. God, show me where the keys are. Me, I'm gonna fuss her and the kids out. Why'd you take my keys? Now a lot of times she put them back wherever the right place is. It's the right place for her, wrong place for me. But but truthfully, I don't do that. And she teaches the kids to do that. The kids will say, "Mom, I can't find." Well, did you pray about it? Mom, is it always spiritual with you? And she's like, yeah. But she has that kind of faith, when I need that strength, I'll call her. There's times at work I'll have to call her, and I'll say, honey, I'm on the cliff, I'm on the edge of the cliff, and you talk me down, and she will, and she'll encourage my faith and my trust, she'll be like, Terry, that God knows what we need to live, and we have to trust Him. Because there's times that I see the mountain, and it's overwhelming. And she's standing on the outside, and she's looking at it, and she said, honey, it's a molehill. Step over it. But to me, I can't step over it. It's too big. It's too impassable for me. So I have to grab her faith and do it. And again, it's not from just my benefit. It's for the people that's outside these walls. Your neighbor. Your neighbor that's, is struggling in their marriage. Your neighbor that is struggling in their finances. Your neighbor who has got cancer and going through it alone. That's why he wants us to have faith. Because again, there's times I don't have faith. There's times I don't have trust. And I should. I remember a time when we were first married and we were, living paycheck to paycheck. Really it was living paycheck to 2 paychecks. I mean, things were tight. And Wani would tell me that, Terry, this is the last can of formula. I've looked in the cabinet, there is no more formula. And, okay, well, I don't know what we're going to do. And she would, use that can of formula, and she'd be like, well, I'm just going to double check. And there'd be another can. And I think this went on for like 3 days until either WIC came or a check or something. But it was, I know because I watched her rip everything out of this cabinet, and just like, I don't know, Terry, I'm going to look again. And it was there. But then there's times that I look at that mountain and say, that mountain's too big. Maybe I'm just getting older and I'm just looking at it and saying, I'm too tired. I'm too tired of trusting God. I'm too tired to have the faith to move that mountain. But I got to get over that. We've got to get over that. We have to be a church and a set of believers that, no, we don't have the biggest facility. We don't have the most resources. But you know what? I honestly believe that we can be the church that has the most anointing. That we can be the church that has the most faith and trust in God. That people, whether they come here or not, they be driving by and just say, I've got to go. I've got to come into that church. I don't know, because needs are being met. Being a church that serves without strings does not just mean physical needs, which is important. It's also spiritual needs, emotional needs. That's the stuff we can do. All it takes from us is to do our responsibility, to have enough faith. I don't want to be the church that doesn't have faith that God can move mountains. I want to be a church that says, you know what, I don't understand the Lord. I don't see it. I don't see how we can do it. I want to dream the big dreams, the impossible dreams, and see God change the world, change our communities, change our lives, change our children's lives. We owe it to them. We owe it to the world to give what we have. I'm going to close out a little differently than like we normally do. But I want us all to stand and kind of come more together, because when I was doing this, I just felt that we really need to recommit our life and recommit our family back to asking God for that kind of faith. Maybe we unconsciously just forgot. Just, life gets over us, but maybe we, among kids,